I'd be curious to know when you're investigating this, like if we're starting this at like base one, what are some of the biggest things that you would advise people to at least get to be more familiar about money, that you find if they are completely unaware right now, they will get blindsided, or it could be something that, they would never understand if they wouldn't understand the fundamental principles here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess I would first like to say there are many people that talk about crypto or cryptocurrencies or crypto assets as if it's this one homogeneous glob of innovation. And there's a deep fallacy there that, Bitcoin is the same thing as Ethereum, is the same thing as Dogecoin, et cetera. And to be very clear, there are two distinct hemispheres to this universe. There's Bitcoin and there's everything else. In Bitcoin circles, we say there's Bitcoin and there are shitcoins. And now that term is not necessarily derogatory. I actually think it's somewhat accurate because, again, the nature of Bitcoin, the way that it emerged, was done in such an idiosyncratic way that there was an organic sequence of events that led to this internet protocol that we call Bitcoin ossifying such that no one can change it. And this is the real magic of Bitcoin, that there's no individual, no company, no foundation that can pass any political or policy decision that can change the core consensus protocol of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is, 21 million Bitcoin, a block every 10 minutes. These things are as probabilistically certain as the rising and setting sun. And that may sound crazy, and it is indeed quite the crazy innovation, but this is the magical property of Bitcoin, that is decentralized in a pure sense, that there's no central authority that can do anything about it to change its rules. That is not the case with any other so-called crypto asset or cryptocurrency or shitcoin. All of them have some degree of centralization, and their rules can be changed. And therefore, to the extent they represent themselves to be a decentralized solution to anything, they are misleading at best. So my advice is, anyone new to this space, and the typical path is this: you're interested in Bitcoin, you then get distracted by all these shiny object shitcoins, and then over time, as you continue to study Bitcoin and crypto assets, you will learn that Bitcoin is something fundamentally different. It's like an extension of the internet itself, whereas all other shitcoins are more like liquid venture capital companies that are subjected to little, if any, due diligence. So I would say that cryptocurrencies or shitcoins are at best gambling devices, and at worst, they're outright scams. And indeed, I would say 95+% of these things have proven over the past 14 years to be outright scams. So my very straightforward advice is to just study Bitcoin. Just put your energy and your focus on Bitcoin. That will quickly take you into the rabbit hole of what is money, because when you ask the question, what is Bitcoin? The answer is, well, Bitcoin is a new form of money. So the natural extension to that line of inquiry is, well, what is money? That, as you mentioned at the top of the show, is the namesake of my podcast, and we've spent over 350 episodes at this point, probably 500 some odd hours in content, trying to answer that question. It's a very deep philosophical question. My show is not a finance podcast. It's not an investing podcast. It really is a philosophy podcast. Like, we talk about history, we talk about physics, technology, anthropology, energy, psychology, sociology, the history of warfare, and how money and the character of money has changed over time, and how the changing character of money changes the shape of civilization itself. So I think that would be my strong advice. There's nothing prescriptive here. I wouldn't even say buy Bitcoin. It certainly helps, I think, when you have some skin in the game, like where your money goes, your mind tends to follow. I know for me, once I bought a little bit of Bitcoin, I was very assiduous in my studies. Like, what is this thing that I own? I need to understand it. Whatever you own, hopefully you understand. Otherwise, you're not going to own it well or own it long. So that's my advice, right? It's not to buy Bitcoin per se. It's just to study Bitcoin, and by extension, study the nature of money itself.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.